All right, so let's talk about a very common thing that comes up in my work with couples, which is arguments about driving. So this is very common. I just am kind of estimating ballpark. This has probably come up in at least 70% of my couples work. It's very common. If you and your partner have some disagreements about driving, you're not alone. I want to try to give you a little bit of some guidance in terms of how to think about this, some discussions to have with your partner to try to understand better what's going on in these moments, and some actionable advice to help navigate these tough moments. All right, so I think that this kind of comes down to three main areas. First area is our different perceptions in terms of risk tolerance and what can feel different if we're the driver versus the passenger. Also, our experiences in cars and car accidents and that type of thing. Also, our experience around criticism and things we experienced with learning how to drive and what did we observe the different adults around cars and driving when we were growing up. Okay, so let's start with the driver versus passenger perception. So, something that I think is important to keep in mind is that first of all, two people can experience the exact same car ride and have very different takeaways in terms of like, did that feel fine? Did that feel fun and thrilling? Did that feel terrifying? Right? We're all kind of wired differently. We all bring our different history to these experiences. And so, yeah, so it's not about like, was this good driving? Was this bad driving? It's like we can all actually have a different experience. That experience can also differ between if we're the passenger or if we're the driver. So if I'm the driver, I know what I'm planning. My passenger does not. Like, I might know that I've taken my foot off the gas pedal and I'm about to step on the brake pedal a fraction of a second before my passenger feels anything, right? So I might know that, like, I am actually slowing down, or I do see that curve coming and I'm in the process of addressing it. My passenger has no idea because there's just no way to download all that information. So there's also this discrepancy in terms of knowledge and understanding and like what am I planning versus what is my passenger experiencing. Um, so that can be just something to think about. Inherently, there's probably going to be a little bit more uncertainty, maybe a little bit more discomfort and more anxiety when we're in the passenger position. Um, But, if you've done therapy with me, then you know that I'm also about kind of understanding what are the deeper themes? Like what other patterns or experiences are kind of at stake in these moments that might not be as obvious. So I would love for you and your partner to also talk about things like, in general, what is it like for each of you to not be in control? Not even around driving, just in general. Like, how comfortable or maybe a little risky does it feel in general to sort of have decisions about my life be in the hands of somebody else? Some people can feel pretty comfortable with that. Some of us, it's like not our thing. So that can be a helpful thing to just kind of explore and acknowledge. Also, specifically around cars, what kinds of experiences have all of us had in terms of how we experienced a car accident? Have we experienced close calls in a car? Have we known somebody who's had a difficult experience in a car? And this one is interesting because I've noticed this one can go either way. There are those of us who have been in a car accident or who have had a close call, and the fear and the pain of that experience has gotten stored in our bodies to the extent that, like, little things that can happen in a car can kind of bring that all back up, right? So I might feel really nervous, like when I feel the acceleration of a car going around a curve quickly, because of my past experiences. I've also seen this go the other direction, where there's been somebody who's been in a car accident and is like, you know what? Um, I've been in a car accident and it wasn't a big deal. I walked away. It was fine. So now I'm actually less scared of them than I was before. So just knowing that, I think can be helpful context in terms of what kinds of maybe fears or just like physical discomfort might we be having in different moments in a car. Um, Okay. The other one that I think can be really helpful to explore is what have our past experiences been around driving and learning how to drive and experiencing kind of that um, critique or criticism from a passenger. So first of all, have we had any experiences in our younger years or any other time where we were a passenger in a car with somebody else driving and we didn't feel safe? Especially if we were little and we didn't really have a voice, those experiences can be stored in a way in our bodies that feel like very uncomfortable. Um, what is our experience around learning how to drive and experiencing that critique or criticism from an adult in our lives that we cared about? Did we have someone teaching us how to drive who was very critical? Did we have someone teaching us how to drive that had a lot of their own anxiety that was just kind of in the air and impacting our nervous system? That can be a helpful thing to be aware of. Um, And what did we observe between adults driving, right? So, what kinds of dynamics played out between our parents or caregivers when one was a driver and one was a passenger? Like, what kind of messaging did our body get around how to communicate about driving? Okay, so hopefully that can help you guys to just sort of understand, like, not only in the moment what's playing out, but what's the context? What are the deeper experiences that we might kind of both be carrying around and bringing to this moment that might be contributing to either our sense of discomfort in a car or our sense of, oh, it's really difficult to hear what could feel like critical feedback when I'm the one in the driver's seat. And then what I'd like you to do with that is um, to just kind of have some loving compassion with that. Like, okay, I can understand why it's hard if my partner's the one who's driving and maybe they had a critical parent growing up and they never felt like the way they drove was good enough or whatever. I can kind of hold that in my heart when I make my request. Like, hey, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. Could you slow down? Versus like, God, you're so unsafe. Like, man. If I'm the driver and I know that my partner has had some really scary experiences in a car or a lot of experiences where like they didn't feel like they had a voice to make a request, and then if they're feeling uncomfortable, I can kind of have more compassion for that and understand that like, okay, they're struggling. There's some things I can do to help. And then specifically the way that you guys talk about this in the moment, I think can be really helpful if it's done with some care. Okay, so if I'm the passenger and I'm realizing that I'm feeling uncomfortable, the way that I'd like you to think about going about this is talk about your own personal experience and then make a request versus like a just kind of a global comment about like you're driving unsafely, right? So as opposed to criticizing like you're being unsafe, you took that curve too fast, that kind of a comment tends to just disintegrate into a defensive, like, no, I didn't, it's fine, I'm going the speed limit. Yeah, but it's too fast because like the road is wet and the blah, 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 blah. You get into kind of just like a back and forth thing where it quickly descends into an argument about who's being unreasonable. Are you being too unreasonable because you're being too anxious or too anxious? Are you being unreasonable because you're driving too unsafely? And it turns out there isn't anybody in the car who's like the actuary in charge of determining what's reasonable and what's unreasonable. So like, let's just not even go down that road. Let's frame it in terms of I'm having an experience and I have a request for you, right? So the way this could look like is I'm feeling a little nervous on this windy road. Could you please take these curves more slowly just to help me out? Okay. So talking about my experience and making a specific request. If I'm the driver, then my job is to hear that and receive that, understand that my partner is taking a risk to kind of make a request of me. If I'm going to feel that defensiveness rising up, it's my job to take a deep breath and kind of fight that in the moment. Especially, by the way, if we are an ADHDer or somebody with a neurodivergent brain, the experience of receiving critical feedback can be really uncomfortable. First of all, maybe nobody loves that, right? No matter what kind of brain you have, maybe none of us love feeling like, oh, maybe I'm not doing a great job, and that's being pointed out, or like, I think I'm doing a great job, but you don't. So, like, my urge is to want to defend myself. but especially for those of us with some neurodivergence in our brain, it can be like that defensiveness can rise up really strongly and really fast. So keeping an eye out for that, taking a deep breath, remembering that I love this person. I don't want them to feel uncomfortable in the car with me. Like, I want them to feel safe. I want them to feel comfortable. Yeah, if you're making a request, I can honor that, right? So then my job is to say, I want you to feel safe. I can internally have the experience where I'm acknowledging, like, I think this is fine. But you're not experiencing it that way, right? So it doesn't matter. Again, we're not going to go down the road of arguing about who's right, who's wrong. It's going to be a deep breath and it's going to be, oh my gosh, thanks for letting me know. I want you to feel safe. Let me know what I can do. Okay, so I hope that helps. So just to recap, this is about, first of all, a really common experience. You're not alone if this is hard. Do a little bit of conversation with your partner around kind of your past experiences around the themes of safety in cars, receiving critical feedback, and kind of what comes up for you around that. And then in those moments where you're navigating it, it's in terms of making, if you're making the request, make it in terms of, here's an experience I'm having. Here's a request I have for you to help me out. If I'm the driver and I'm receiving that request, realizing that this is about helping my partner feel safe and comfortable and taking that deep breath and finding out how I can help. All right, good luck with it. And I hope you have great car rides between here and wherever you need to go.